Hello everyone. Hi. Um, so this is day 3 of what's actually 5 days of PyCon Australia. On days 4 and 5, we have a thing called the sprints, which is an opportunity for people to come in here and work on open source projects. Normally we have some fairly senior contributors from those projects, and it's a really good opportunity for people to basically try their hands at contributing to open source projects and learning what that is all about, making improvements to the stuff they use on a fairly day-to-day basis. If you are one of those senior contributors, can you think about the sorts of stuff that you might be leading in your sprint over tomorrow and Tuesday? Towards the end of the lightning talks, I'm going to give you all an opportunity to spend 30 seconds telling the audience what it is that your project will be doing during the sprints. So have a think about it for the next hour, and at some point I'll invite you all up to go through things in a fairly rapid-fire process. Yes, Jacinta?
We didn't sign up for the sprints, but we're free. Can we turn up anyway?
I imagine so. Hey, Richard, if somebody didn't sign up for the sprints but is free anyway, are they welcome to show up? Yep. Absolutely. All welcome, regardless of whether you signed up or not.
Welcome, he means please.
Yes, the more of you, the better. Up to a certain point, we only have enough seats, but I'm sure we can make some space on the floor. Yeah. The sprints will be around here. In this very room right here. Very difficult to find. Lightning talks. You know how those things work. Let's just practice our applause. Stop! Oh, let's try again. Applause! Stop! Great. We're going to waste so little time today. Up first, we have Nick Moore, who's going to be telling us about a graphical programming language for educational robots. Time has started.
Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Tim for saving you all from a presentation. Oh, Mike, is it not working? Yep. It is working. All right, okay. I'd like to thank Tim for saving you all from a presentation called Why I Forgot My HDMI Cable. Flowbot I mentioned in my ESP IoT talk, and a bunch of people have said, hey, that sounds really interesting, let's talk about it more, so I thought I'd talk about it for 4 minutes, plus or minus. All right, it's a visual data flow language, which just basically means we're moving away from a language as a text file. Data flow, meaning that the data flows through it. It's not about variables, it's about flows of data. And educational robots, because educational robots are cool. I had a look at a lot of the products on the market, and there's some problems I identified there. The tool chain is a pain to install. The cabling, just plugging things in and out, is a pain, especially for small children who are a bit funny about putting USB ports in the wrong way up all the time. Coding errors like syntax errors are really off-putting. You go, I've got this idea, I'll do this thing. Syntax error, where, what, why, a semicolon? What's a semicolon, Dad? You know, I felt that was a really big problem, and the debugging support is quite poor. So I thought, how do we move on from this? Well, why don't we put the entire toolchain in a web browser? Why don't we use Wi-Fi instead of a cable at all? Let's get rid of the whole concept of syntax, thus the data flow programming, and let's provide some visual debugging support. So I come up with this thing, which is Flowbot. There's a toolbox of stuff on the right there. There's a bunch of components on the left, and you're connecting sensors, which are the things at the top with the little round tops, with actuators, which are the motors and things on the bottom there, with a bunch of little logical units that let you transform stuff. This is a lot like, say, programming in a spreadsheet, where you're really just connecting formulas to other cells, and so on and so forth. It's also a bit like that thing from National Instruments whose name just suddenly escapes me. LabVIEW. Thank you, LabVIEW. Now, I have a live hardware demo because they always work every time. Oh, wow. Actually got a connection. Cool. So this is a little robot that I made as a prototype because there's no point trying to say what will work for kids unless you have something they can actually pick up. This is the sensors it's got. It's got a range sensor, and we can take the output of this range sensor, we can compare it to something. So we grab a comparator, we drag it over here. We make a number and we drag it over here somehow, even though we're trying to do this on a podium. Oh, come on. Of all the things. And we can wire one to the other like that, and we can wire one to the other like that, and we can see, look, there's a range sensor. There's output coming from the range sensor, and it changes right there on the screen. But wait, there's more. We can attach that to the motors. So we can say if the range is more than something, go forwards, and if the range is less than something, go backwards. And now the robot should, if it could get any grip on this glass table, oh, hang on, go the wrong way. Oh yeah, I have to compare that to something, don't I? That would be a good idea. Now, this is really interesting. It's doing exactly the wrong thing because I've told it to go towards me if I'm too close and away if I'm too far. I'd better just swap some wires around, right? This is a difficult debugging job, just refactoring my code here. Let me just change that wire. Oh, come on, man, there's a timer running here. All right, let's try that. Great, excellent. So, we can servo it back and forth. As I move my hand away, it moves along. All right. Yay. So that's the magic of programming. I can change something and something cool happens in less than 3 minutes for primary school kids. Thanks very much.
I feel as though we're going to replace a whole series of indentation errors with mouse issues, I think. But otherwise, that looks really, really cool. Thank you very much, Nick. So up on deck, we have Tim Ansell over here, and Josh Dupre appears to have got his laptop to have connected to the projector some 24 hours late. Your time starts now.
Hi.
Hi, Josh.
How's it going? Having a good PyCon. So this is a talk about language bashing, which is a specific variant of platform bashing, or contempt culture is another word for it. And we've had a few, it's come up a few times already at PyCon. It was recently called out this morning by Russ. And basically, I'd like to thank you all for a number of things. First of all, thanks to Chris for letting me have this lightning talk slot again. Thank you all for not actually bashing any languages or platforms while I've been in earshot. And thank you for using my favorite language when I've chatted to all of you. Does anyone know what my favorite language is? English. That's right. It's not Python. English is a technology for transmitting ideas between people. We usually call this technology, or the application, the implementation of this particular technology, speaking and listening, or some people prefer an alternative implementation, which is called reading and writing. And I wanted to get up here and bash English a bit because it's it's a bit of a different choice for language bashing. Like, I could get up here and try and bash Python or bash something else.
Bash.
But like, it's my favorite, and I'm speaking to you in it. And the point I really wanted to make, the first point I wanted to make, the first idea I want to transmit to you with English is that even though English has more WATs than JavaScript, we wouldn't throw out all of Shakespeare just because of that, and we wouldn't stop having the humanities just because of that. So now I'd like to start talking about reasons why we don't use programming. No, my verbal indentation is very bad, and I usually mix my spaces in my tabs, so that's why I don't use Python for speaking. The next idea I want to transmit to you is that I'm very sorry. I'm sorry because 2 years ago I got up here and gave a lightning talk. Well, not this specific spot, but I got up at PyCon and I gave a lightning talk, and it was very well received and everyone was very well entertained, but I said two things that I regret. Basically, the two things that I regret saying were that essentially I said that Node was unprofessional and that Haskell was incomprehensible. And I regret saying that. And no one's called me out on it. Well, almost no one. I spoke to one person last night who actually remembered my lightning talk, and they like, yeah, it was great. You shouldn't feel bad about that. It was well received. Everyone knew you were joking. The problem with that is, of course, that it doesn't matter what the intent of the message is or whether you think you were joking or not. It's about what you said and what you did. So for that, I'm sorry. The next thing I want to bring up is one of the main reasons why language bashing is a problem, and that is the notion of the real programmer. This is toxic. I believe that there is no such thing as a real programmer. I think like the real man or toxic masculinity, the real programmer is a cancer in programming and it should be eliminated. I'm going to go through a couple of examples of common language bashing things that you might have seen. So one common thing you see is a particular language is too simple, maybe it's too like English. Examples being like COBOL. I guess I'm not a real programmer if I use that. Or maybe it's too abstract. Well, do you solve real problems? The point with all these examples is, of course, that it's very easy to personalize criticism of a language when it's made poorly. The most we should be saying is, you know, is the design of the language good for a particular job or not? You could build the Empire State Building with a hammer and some planks of wood, but you wouldn't necessarily choose this tool. Similarly, we should be evaluating our tools on an engineering basis and not like whether it's cool or not. Another one that I've seen around a bit is like, is it open source or not? You know, it's good to have ideals, but it's how you act on your ideals that's really the important thing. And finally, you know, if we we can go around saying, you know, I don't want to learn this, but it's every language that you come across is important and might teach you something. So here's a bunch of tools that I've used, and you should no longer apologize for having used.
Yay! Hey, just wondering, is Dan Holmes in the audience at the moment? Awesome. I'm going to come and say hi in a moment. Up on deck, we have Ms. Bram. So if you could come and set up. Here we have Tim Ansell, who's going to tell us why your HDMI scribble matters and other tales.
Okay, so I've got a lot to get through in this thing. I think I've got 82 slides. So, debugging HDMI. Normally when I come and give a lightning talk, it is this one. But I'm not giving it this year because I gave it at the Chaos Club and it traumatized me. You can go and watch it. They made me tell somebody to change my slides, and I had 80 slides. So, debugging HDMI could also be called teach everyone HDMI in 3 minutes, which is what I'm going to attempt to do, or don't trust speakers because they're the real problem. So, I'm running a project called Tim Videos, and it's designed to capture and record and make really easy live streaming of conferences. It's full of Python. It's there. It's even in the speakers at this conference, so that's pretty awesome. You can see my recorded talk I gave on more details about why it's all in Python, almost. There are two parts that I'd like to talk about more, the HDMI to USBs. They're hardware for capturing HDMI. They effectively man in the middle the signal sending to the projector so that we can get a nice digital capture of your slides because you don't all use the same operating system. To us, it appears as a webcam and a serial port. There's a problem with this, though. People still use VGA, and VGA is not HDMI, and that makes me sad. It was developed in 1987. It's an analog signal. Our fix for that is to use a VGA to HDMI converter and hope they kind of stop doing it like the dinosaurs did. But we also have a VGA expansion board in the plan in the future. So that's all good. But how does HDMI itself work? This is an HDMI cable. Has 19-ish pins inside that cable, of which this many are ground. There's a power one. There's a bunch of high-speed digital ones. There's some low-speed digital ones. So that's kind of HDMI connector. This is what a HDMI decoder looks like internally in kind of a block diagram. To understand HDMI, you need to understand a whole bunch of different protocols. How I'm going for time.
2 minutes and 25, 4, 3.
Oh, got plenty of time.
2,
So I'm going to tell you
1.
the two main ones. There's one called EDID. So what is EDID? EDID is basically copy and pasted from VGA. It tells the computer what the display can do. It's kind of part of the plug and play type thing. Before then, you had to look up in your manual and type some numbers into your computer. It uses a protocol called I2C to talk to an EEPROM, which has some data in it. It uses these two pins. These are that. It basically tells the resolution, frequency, and format that the display works at. So you end up with this, because displays want to say they can do everything, and speakers ask, what resolution do I use? They support many formats, but they actually lie. And projectors are really bad at this. So this is a supported format on a monitor. Yes, very supported. As well, capturing, we want a different type of display to necessarily what's on the screen, because scaling stuff looks really bad and you all use way too small fonts. So this is how we fix it. You might notice there's kind of a lot of options to choose from. Offer a single option makes things...
1 minute.
So 720p. Well, sometimes laptops just do 800 by 600, and this happens. So at the moment, it's just cry, but we might implement scaling. There's also two frequencies that things tend to operate at. Everything these days is global, and you think if Australia, you bought something in Australia, it would work in Australian standard. No, sorry. So we made everything speak with an American accent. 720p 60. That seemed to work. We deployed that on Saturday, and a lot of our problems, Friday, and that made a lot of problems go away. So we actually have high-speed data as well, RGB. These are the pins. This is kind of, goes from 8 to 10 bits, and back again. You can find out more there. So what happens when things go wrong? Occasionally you only get small errors, but sometimes you get big errors like this. So you want debugging. And this debugging gives you lots of information.
Yay! Yay! Thanks, Tim. Dan, if you want to come up and you can go next. Now, this is really odd. Yesterday, there were a whole bunch of people who wrote Sunday on their cards, and that's okay. We had Sunday lightning talks. This one says Thursday, and we don't have Thursday light.
But Thursdays are the best days.
Sure.
On that note, I'm Thursday Bram, and I want to talk to you about programming shibboleths. And after Josh's talk, I completely want to rewrite this, but I don't have time, so we're just going for it. One of the things that I love about technology is that we have a lot of in-jokes. We have a lot of in-jokes, and they're funny. Even the ones where we pick on other people are kind of funny. But these are shibboleths, and they're kind of a problem for us. The thing about a shibboleth is that it's a custom or a piece of language or a joke that's meant to differentiate between people who are inside the group and who are outside the group. And that's because it makes it easier to exclude outsiders. So as we're telling these jokes and as we're sharing these memes, we are making it a little bit harder for people to get the joke, to join in, to laugh with us instead of, everything else. So if we want to have a diverse, inclusive community of programmers, we need to be thinking about these shibboleths, these things that we're doing that do make it harder for people to join. And I'm definitely not saying that we can't be funny, that we can't have in-jokes, that we can't have these pieces that tie the community together, but we have to let people in on the joke. We have to have ways of making sure that people can understand what we're laughing about and be very positive and outgoing and kind about what we're doing. One of the things that sort of drives me nuts about how some communities welcome new programmers is you go and you post a question and somebody comes back with RTFM. First of all, not everybody's going to know what RTFM means if they haven't been, here or otherwise in our community, but some people don't know where the manual is. Some people don't know if there's a manual at all. So we just need to be aware as we choose the jokes that we make, the way that we talk about our communities, what we want to do to let people in on the joke, and maybe hopefully they can laugh too. And that's it.
So we have Joel Stanley up on deck here. We're going to take a quick break from our regularly scheduled lightning talks. One of the things that makes this conference possible and at the price point and at the quality that we try to offer is having a lot of really excellent, fantastic sponsors. And Dan Holmes is here from Dev Demand Co., one of our platinum sponsors, who's going to give us a few words about what it is they do and why they're here.
Hi guys, this is the clap, yes, thank you. So this is one of the best parts of conferences where sponsors get to pitch to you, and they love to do it, and it's not nervous at all. Can I get everyone to just put their hands up for me? Oh great, so everyone loves sponsor talks. So what Dev Demand does is quite simple. We're an enterprise accelerator. And what that means is we walk into an enterprise and we say, look, we think that you have some fantastic ideas amongst your employees. A lot of you guys understand what it is to be an employee and have a fantastic idea and not have your manager hear it. So we try and take those and we take that to the board of directors and the COOs and say, hey, look, here's the fantastic ideas these guys have. We give them we say what budget they'll need to do it and a go-to-market plan, and then we try and make that happen for them. I don't know if you know, but apparently around 50% of jobs are going to be gone in the next 10 years, and probably not going to happen to us in tech, but there's a lot of enterprises that are stuck in the old ways. So, closer? So yeah, if we can help make them transition to the digital economy, that would be fantastic. So why we're here at PyCon is because we're a community, and as far as the company is concerned, we're only 7 people as well, so we value community very much to work as a small team. And we think that community has to be supported and pushed forward, and it's one of the ways that as a society we're going to grow and be able to overcome big problems like 50% of some people's jobs disappearing. Yeah, so we want to thank you all so much for having the opportunity to sponsor this conference and for listening to my very, very long talk.
So yeah, thank you very much. Dev Demand were in fact new sponsors this year, so it's really very cool that they signed on at the platinum level. If you are interested in sponsoring PyCon AU for next year and getting your name on one of these banners, or perhaps even having the limited opportunities to give ads in front of the audience, get in contact with us at sponsorship@pycon-au.org. Joel, if you can set up over here. On this side we have Chris Swenson, who is going to tell us about a Python NetHack Mac screensaver. And your time has started.
All right. Hopefully video will continue to work, and I'll just try not to touch the cable. Yes, I'm Christopher Swenson. I wrote a cute, I think, NetHack Mac screensaver. So I have a thing where I love NetHack. It's a really cool game if you don't know, text-based generally. And it's also incredibly difficult, and I have no idea how to play. So this is a problem because I think it looks really cool. And so I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if I had a screensaver that like showed people playing NetHack or played NetHack, and you know, how cool would that look? And so one day I was like, okay, I'll just do this. And so I did, and I released the source code. GitHub.com/Swenson is me, and there's TTY-rec2GIF, sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
scandal.
So, scandal. That's why I said both. The way this works is very straightforward. So again, NetHack is a simple text-based game, so generally played in a console. And I'll give a demo of this in a second. And the way people generally have recorded games, I found, is a format called TTY-rec, which is essentially you just record all of the characters that are displayed on the terminal in a very straightforward format. And so I wrote a decoder for that in Python that plays those back and then puts them into a module called PyTE or PyT, I guess, Python Terminal Emulator. So anyways, I just very basic stuff involving image stuff and PyTE, and I won't go through all the stuff, but essentially I take the terminal buffer after every keystroke and parse it out, and then basically manually render pixels for the font so that it looks all console-y. And I sort of decided, like, well, I have to use a font for this, So I will use the font that gives me the most fonty feels, which is the classic IBM VGA font, VGA, our friend from the last talk, which looks sort of like this. If you used DOS back in the day, that's what it looks like. So essentially, I just actually read this file that I got from Wikipedia because I think it's free, and I just use that. It's actually a very interesting question on if it is or not. And I did, if you are interested in this, you can ask me, or just remember that I'm Swenson, and it's TTYREC2 GIF, and then there is actually a zip file you can download that has this that may or may not work in the grand spirit of open source. I've tested it on my machine, and it worked fine there, and I haven't really tested it on anything else, but actually that's not true. I tested it on one of the boxes, and it didn't work. So, good luck with that. And I will give a quick, so if my screensaver is this, so hopefully it'll kick on and actually start showing. It displays like basically random 5-minute snippets that are played back at super high speed of someone who's really good at NetHack playing NetHack, because that's much more entertaining than just looking at me at the beginner levels and like dying constantly, because that's all I ever do. But this person, whoever this is probably Mod or someone really good at NetHack, and so it looks really cool to just sit there and watch them play, although they spend a lot of time looking at their inventory. Yeah, and I think that is the things I have. I'm trying to see if I had anything else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, so the way this actually works, the screensavery part I wanted to just briefly mention is actually in Quartz Composer. I learned this from Jacob Kaplan-Moss, and this is sort of what it looks like. I also released the source code, whatever that means for this, which is how you actually turn animated GIFs into Mac screensavers, which is pretty cool. So it means you could take what I've written and take any animated GIFs and make it your screensaver, and it will automatically like pick them randomly and cut them off after 5 minutes and start a new one, which I think is pretty neat. And that is what I got.
Normally when I see somebody bring up their lock screen during a lightning talk, it's a sign that something has gone horribly wrong. Thank you for being the exception to that rule. On deck we have a guy named Edward whose handwriting looks like this. If you could come up and start setting up. In the meantime, Joel Stanley is going to tell us about porting MicroPython to an FPGA soft cone live.
I didn't write that, thanks. So hello, my name's Joel. Late last night, or actually yesterday afternoon, I heckled Tim during his talk and I said, does your project run MicroPython? Knowing that I'd probably be the sucker that would have to implement it. So at the pub, I said, oh, that'll take a good 10 minutes, maybe 5. And I've spent today battling toolchain issues. So this is the talk about what I would like to have spoken to you about today. With the punchline at the end. So porting MicroPython to FPGA Live. Everyone here has heard of MicroPython? Yeah, great. Who's here has heard of FPGAs? Yeah, sweet. Everyone knows what's going on. So this is an FPGA. It's a chip that acts like another chip. This is a CPU. We can chuck CPUs inside FPGAs. All this hardware that's recording the conference right now, the stuff that Tim was speaking about earlier, it has a soft core, a soft FPGA inside, sorry, a soft CPU inside an FPGA, and we use it for the interface to control stuff. So when Tim comes up and debugs things, that's what he's looking at. It runs this OpenRISC 1000 CPU. That says 1200, I'm not sure what's going on there. So that's the CPU that's inside of our system. It has a user interface. The user interface currently looks like this, but this is a cool user interface too as well, right? So what if it could run Python inside of it? And that's the question I wanted to answer today. So off I went. I cloned MicroPython thinking, oh, this can't be too hard. And here I am several hours later. Oh, that's on the wrong screen. So over the course of the day, did a bunch of hacking. I haven't checked anything in. So basically, to port MicroPython to a new system, there's this nice little example. What's it called? It's called Minimal inside the source code directory. And you go in there and hook it up to your serial port, and you're done. And so that's essentially what I've done today. I've sitting there and gotten all the C compiler bits in place and rewritten the make files and battled linker errors for the next 6 hours. But it links now, I think. So here's a bit of a demo. There we go, so it links. So we've got a little executable there. I tried loading that up in the simulator just before I came on, didn't quite work. So come along to Sprints tomorrow and you can see me code it live. Thanks very much.
So up on deck we have Tyson Klug. Hopefully we will see some working stuff from Joel by the end of tomorrow and he can give a lightning talk next year or something. Tyson Klug up on this side, and Edward is going to tell us about why passwords are bad.
So
Or
yeah,
terrible. Ooh.
terrible, yes. So go grab a squirrel. I'm going to give a quick shout out here to Dr. Greg Turner for this slide. Yeah, we've been doing stuff wrong and we should stop doing it, regardless of the fact that we've got a lot of, impetus to it. So one of the big things is that people keep stealing our passwords from websites that we go and sign into. I mean, this happens all the time, and lots of them, and we keep reusing passwords. And so managing our passwords is also really hard. How many times have you hit this button? And to help us with that, we've got this massive amount of software that tries to help us to automatically give passwords and generate them and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we're still trusting someone else with our identity. We're giving our identity, the fact that we have this username and password combination, to someone else to manage for us. I want to do that myself. So did this guy. This is Steve Gibson from the GRC Corporation. He's worked in security, and he came up with this thing called Squirrel, SQRL. So that is a secure, quick, reliable login. So I borrowed someone else's slides for this. So basically, we use usernames and passwords a lot everywhere. We should stop doing that. We can't really trust websites to do anything. And so we should, use something a little bit better. So here, I found someone who gave an illustrated guide. Basically, we have a QR code that comes up. And what happens when we get it? Well, we create a master key. We use public crypto, and we have it, and we use public crypto with the website as a hash. We then take that, we make a public-private key pair, we encrypt a nonce and give the website our public key. So then when we want to go and log in again, we just re-encrypt a nonce with our private key to get the nonce verifiable by the public key. There's a whole big lot of code and documentation on this new open standard that Steve's been busy writing. There's a lot of it, if you can see. Yeah, he's got 20 sections of about 4-page documents. It's great. But for those of us here at PyCon, there is already an implementation for the client. And for those of you doing Django, there's an implementation for Django that lets you use this as your auth mechanism for your website. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Up on deck we have Jacinta, I presume Richardson. Let's see. Yeah, let's just see if this AV issue will resolve itself over on this side before we actually do stuff. It looks like it has, which is a great sign, which means that I can now start this clock.
Hello. Have we got... Hey, if I can get a clap on the 1 minute mark, at least I get 4 claps in total from everyone. That'd be great. So I'm here to talk about something I did last year. I talked a lightning talk, and I said that I wanted to have something that would tell us about the quality of projects out in PyPy. For those of you that know PyPy, of course, we have... Oh, hang on. Where is it? Hang on. The AV here is fun. So we want to do... Hey! All right, so PyPy, package index. You get packages in here, but there are so many packages. I myself, as you can see, have at least 10 in there. And of course, I have to maintain them. How do I know that anyone else is maintaining things? Well, thank you. I know that when I look at particular pages in the package index, that some of them have some quality metrics right at the top, and they tell me things like it passes the doc tests and it runs in particular versions of Python. Do this for your packages. If you put your packages in, if you put your readme.rst instead of readme.md, as GitHub prompts you to do by default, then of course you can just put your description as being restructured text and it in your setup.py, and then you get beautifully formatted information in your PyPy package index. So once you've actually got some reasonable information in there, you probably want to make sure that your setup.py has all of the interesting bits and pieces. Let's bring this up again. So in a setup.py, for example, Django DDP, the project that I spent more than a year of my time on, thank you, we use platform environment markers and all sorts of fun things. Make sure you are using the latest version of pip and setup tools. For people that are writing setup tools bits and pieces, if you're writing a setup.py and you're putting a bunch of conditionals inside the Python code, then you're doing it wrong. And by the way, this is probably doing it wrong. So rather than do that, use setup tools and environment markers. Learn about it. It means you can do cool things like Python 2 requires this, Python 3 requires something else, rather than conditionals in your code. What else do we want in one of these things? We want Trove classifiers. We want to advertise to the community what we support. So back into here, I can see that if I go down in the package list here, this comes up in the documentation. These are classifiers. It tells me that this will work in Python 3.4. I don't have to go hunting for that. Thank you. I've got 2 minutes? Yep, great. So make sure that you fill out these bits of information in your package. Other things that you should do in here, you should support running your test suite. So Python setup.py test works. You can do this by putting in the test suite parameter and making sure you have something that can run. Go read up about it, it's fantastic. There's now an easy way for everyone to run your test without reading the docs. Make sure, of course, that you have documentation. So your packages should look fantastic. Python hosted lets you upload. With your setup.py, you can upload your docs. And of course, I'm using some funky stuff to generate our docs. I spent a lot of time on this project. The docs look great. But let's talk about the other aspect of what goes on with open source. So you've got documentation, you've got a setup package, you've got all these other things. Eventually, people are going to find bugs. You have to fix those bugs.
1 minute.
It gets to be a challenge. You get to a point where the package perhaps has gone past the end of its life cycle and it's time to let it go. Now, there's an important thing you can do here. With GitHub, there is a cool group of Python people called JazzBand. JazzBand are a fantastic group of people, and I'm going to live transfer this repository. Yes. So I'm going to transfer Django DDP, the thing I'm most known for, to JazzBand. And I'm going to say that, wow, this is making me emotional. I'll get to that in a actually, you might be able to do that anyway.
10 seconds.
All right, JazzBand, make sure you're aware of it. If you are feeling like you can't take control of your project anymore, let it go to JazzBand instead.
Okay, so up on deck we have David Beattie, if you can come and set up. Jacinta is going to ask us, are we representing Python programmers? And your time starts now.
Hi everyone, this is in some ways for me a redo of a lightning talk I gave a long time ago to a very different community. And it's all fomented on the ideas and things I was thinking about last night. So I've been told that Python is great at community, and you guys are great. You're wonderful, lovely people. You have codes of conduct, you have PyLadies, you have Django girls, you're focused on welcoming people, and there's lots and lots of Python being taught at schools and universities. What about us? So let's compare. Who here develops your code primarily on some sort of Starnix? Yep. What about Windows? Okay, so I had a prediction. Oh, sorry, I should say Jupyter or something else. A tiny, tiny few, yes. So this is sort of what I predicted based on some polls I did during morning tea, and it's about right. So roughly 80% of you Unix, roughly 20% of you Windows, tiny, tiny few doing others. That's probably how you're developing your projects as well. Who here primarily deploys to Unix? Windows? Other? Okay, about the same. Now, what about when people are training? We're teaching people at universities, we're teaching people in workplaces, we're teaching in schools. I asked a bunch of the trainers and all these people, I said, hey, what are you doing? Only 30% of the people who are learning Python are developing and deploying for Unix. If you're writing your projects to work on some form of Starnix, you might need to consider your users a bit more. Now, an obvious one, who identifies as a man? Fairly easy. Oops, I should, one more. Women. Who here identifies as a woman? And of course, non-binary. Anyone? You don't have to put your hand up if you don't want to. Okay. I asked for stats because I didn't have any idea on how to predict. About 13% of the attendees here are women, which is good, but in training, it's a lot more. About 30% women. How can we bring more women to our community-based events, even with Django girls, even with Python ladies? Let's look at our ages. Who is under the age of 20? Awesome, and thank you for turning up. 20 to 30? A lot more of you, that's great. 31 to 40? Yeah, that's me too. Over 40? Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. In training, and unsurprisingly given the focus on schools and universities, there's a lot more younger folk. I think I saw 3 or 4 hands up for the younger folk. How can we get them involved? And remember again, when you're planning stuff, there's a lot of your users there. Of course, this is slightly skewed because I said, hey everyone, who's doing training? I don't know the professional trainers. I ended up speaking to a lot of people who answered me, and they're training students, and as in high school students, maybe upper primary school and university. I did a little bit of research trying to find out how many training organizations there were who, basically search for Python Training Australia. I'm sure they're out there and they could give me better stats, but I couldn't find them quickly. Although I did speak to some people training adults. But keep in mind, your statistics and what you think is your community may not actually match the people using Python. And we need to think about what to do about that. And we also need, perhaps, to improve our outreach even further. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta, for provoking a few thoughts there. Deeply appreciated. Davey Shafik, if you can come and set up over here. And in the meantime, David is going to show us 5 languages in 5 minutes.
Okay, so 5 languages in 5 minutes. So these languages you might think about using on your next project. Very quickly, I'm David. I'm a developer, system admin, and a very enthusiast. And essentially, let's get started. Arnold C. Who expected that? Essentially, it uses keywords and syntax from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and it's actually written in Java, not in C. Here's what it looks like. So essentially, you can define a function. So yeah, so you can define a function. You can it can accept some arguments. Essentially, it says it's a not a void function. You can configure it so that it actually increments an item, and I'll be back. Returns the value. Functions end with hasta la vista, baby. The main function begins with its showtime. Essentially, you define some variables. We're going to print some stuff out, and we see we've very kindly censored the syntax here. And essentially, all programs need to finish with "you have been terminated." So if we run this example, essentially it says farewell from 2016, and we'll see you next year. It's interesting to see exceptions in this sort of regard. Essentially, it swears at you. It's been censored for the kids in the audience. So why might you use it? So it's got good documentation. If you need to look up quotes, you can. There's clear debugging. And you might use it because you actually are Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why not? It's MA15 plus, sorry. Else statements aren't very kid-friendly, and essentially you've only got 16-bit integers. There's no less than operator. It's written in Java, which makes it hard to install. Number 2, Trump script. So it's based on speeches and political content from Donald Trump. So here's an example. Kind of reads like a Donald Trump script, and essentially we're defining some variables, saying how great Python is and so forth, and yeah, so unfortunately, I ran this originally on a Linux machine, and I discovered that if you try and run it on a Mac by default, it won't actually run. It'll raise an exception, and it's a little bit racist, so again, I've censored it accordingly. So yeah, so once you bypass that, running the script for real this time does some interesting things. They've added a neat, it actually checks to see whether you're in China or not, and it'll actually geo-block you. So yeah, so I get a little bit worried when my interpreter actually starts doing this without me asking it. So yeah, right. So why might you use it? Essentially, you can write programs in common language as long as Trump understands it. You can mix in comments because it ignores keywords and so forth. It's easy to hack on because it's written in Python. Yay. And you might use it because you actually are Donald Trump. Why not? Debugging is guesswork. Unlike Arnold C, essentially you just don't know what's going on. There's no Windows support. Donald Trump is non-PC. There's no Mac support, what a surprise, and no internationalization because it's American English only. And for bonus points, it doesn't integrate with Arnold C. So what about lol code in that case? ICANN has internet memes. So here's an example. If I scroll up to the top, essentially what we've got here is we start the program with hi. We've got some comments. Oh, by the way, we import some stuff with canhas. We define some variables, take some input, essentially checking this. And essentially what we're going to do here, because there's no date support within lol code, we're actually calculating the number of days till the next PyCon, or the one that you put in. And all programs need to end with k thanks bye. So we run this and we put in 2015 and we discover that it's only 12,000 days until PyCon AU 2050, so get ready. So why might you use it? Essentially it's using Gen Y natural language, it's got formal spec docs, which is amazing, and whitespace indenting, yay! Yeah!
Stop clapping, only has 1:30.
Well, why not? So there's no dates, integers and floats are quite interesting, number versus number, have fun with that. List comprehensions don't work, and meanwhile in Python you can do it in 2 lines. So BF, tastefully airbrushed. So essentially this is probably the most common SO language that you might hear about. And it's got 8 different operators. You can increment, you can decrement, you can move a pointer left and right. You've got a while loop, and essentially you can print the value into the pointer and input a value. And so essentially here's an example of the code. Nice and readable, right? This prints out PyCon AU 2016. Why might you use it? It's got semantic syntax, supported by pigments, hooray, and you might use it if all your keyboard keys are broken. Why not? It's easy to use commas, and that makes your code break. Readability, who knows? And there doesn't seem to be a linter or a style guide at the moment. So yeah, finally, Anguish. Now this one's written in invisible Unicode characters. Yes, there is a program there. These are the characters that get used, and essentially the output from that code originally outputs my name. The reason I didn't use PyCon is because it's easy to type. I typed all those characters by hand into Vim. That is very, very hard. It hurts your terminal and editing, and why might you use it? You could hide code, and you bought one of those non-printable character keyboards. And finally, PyFection. So improving your code through forced rewriting. This is what it would do. If you want to hack on it...
Yeah. I didn't ask for the music, but apparently we get music now. Javier, if you can come and set up on this other podium. We're actually up to the overflow talks now, so we're making pretty good time. Davey is going to talk to us about open source and social responsibility. Your time has started.
So I'm going to try to fit a 25-minute keynote into 5 minutes. We'll see how I do. So open source and social responsibility. I'm going to start by talking about lines of code. I think everyone's very familiar with this. Who knows how many lines of code there is in Django? 300-something thousand. Yeah? Flask has 14,500. Falcon, about the same actually. CPython has 1.3 million. Amusingly, PHP is about 1.5 million. They're very close. Nginx and Apache, 150 million and 300,000. Using a database, MySQL, 3.5 million. Postgres, 1.2 million. If you're web scale, Mongo, 3.2 million. Memcache, for scale. Now those run on Linux, maybe, which is 17.8 million lines of code. So if you take a look at a typical Python stack, you're looking at about 20.5 million lines of code. That's quite a lot of code. And thousands of contributors. Now, I went and took a base Ubuntu server system, grabbed all of the source packages in a base system, added in like Python and some other stuff, counted all the lines of code, and came up with a number that is 69.5 million lines of code. Add in things like the actual stack and docs and things like that, Postgres, 72.7 million lines of code. So I think that we can say, being as we can take all of these things and bring things to life based on them very, very quickly, that not only are we standing on the shoulders of giants, but we're actually at the top of a very large human pyramid. And what do we build with these fantastic tools, this great head start that we've got? We build Yo. Tinder, Instagram for gerbils, and Uber for getting lunch. Now, there's a gentleman called E.F. Schumacher who wrote, the poor can be helped to help themselves, but only by making available to them a technology that recognizes the economic boundaries and limitations of poverty. And what this means is you can take this fancy, fancy tractor and you can drop it in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, and it's as useful to that person for as long as the petrol in the tank lasts. However, if you give them something like this is way, way, way more useful in their situation. So, the world's most popular cell phone is not made by Apple or Android, it's made by Nokia. And it is the Nokia 1100. It has a battery life of 400 hours. It has a screen of 4 lines. It is dust-proof. It is non-slip. It has a built-in flashlight, which is great in places where you don't have great electricity. It features monophonic ringtones and express-on covers. Remember those? It has a 50-message capacity, and it has sold some 500 million units. It's pretty impressive. Now, you may have noticed sometime, about 2 years ago, Microsoft Nokia 130 hit the news. It was 27 AU dollars. And the reason is because it's the first phone that was going to replace that 1100. And that's pretty impressive. So here's every device on the internet. There are 150 million Africans with internet access out of a population, that's 13.5% of their population. 910 million of them have cell phones. All right, so what can you do with information like that? When you think about the scenario that they're in, they don't have great internet, they do have cell phones, right? Every 15 minutes, an elephant is killed by poachers. What if you could create an application that would receive SMSs to inform authorities about where those poachers are? Every month, 70,000 people die from waterborne diseases. What if you could text people to say, hey, your water is not safe, go somewhere else? And every year, 1.5 million children are killed by vaccine-preventable diseases. What if you could message a mother and say, hey, there are vaccines available within a day's walk? So there are lots and lots of problems in the world. Now, how many of you saw those things and thought, I could do that? That's something that really doesn't sound too hard. What is stopping you? Get out there and change the world. Thank you.
Quite a useful message. Thank you very much, Davey. Ducky, if you can come up and sit over here. Yep, good. Javier is going to tell us about copyright as etiquette and what it means for FLOSS funding. And your time has started.
So I was inspired this morning by Keith McGee's keynote. Who else was inspired by this keynote? Was it great or what?
Stop, he only has 5 minutes.
This is known as borrowed applause. It's a great way to start a talk. And next, I'm going to tell you something, if I can, about me. Just so you know, I started like 15 years ago a site that was a bit like Slashdot with emphasis. Oh, shoot. Dun, 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 bang, 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 doo-doo-doo. Do-do-do. How do you do this? Mirror displays. Do-do-do. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
Ta-da! Okay, so I'm going to have to talk even faster. Thank you. So it's like there's something that was like Slashdot about free software and digital rights, for which I now apologize because it was, you can imagine the comments. I don't need to tell you about it. I also work in software patents advocacy. I help with the porting of the original Creative Commons licenses. And the reason I'm telling you is because this is something that I've been thinking about for quite some time. And also in software art, you know, people make art for museums and for private collections, and everything becomes obsolete very fast. So I've also worked on that. And what this talk is a suggestion about how to reframe the conversation about this economic sustainability of software, particularly free and open source software, but it's not a proposal about business models or anything like that, because people are already working like that. So it's just a suggestion, a contribution to their debate. So the discussion already exists, and I recommend you go check the comments on this repo by Ross, and you check everything that Nadia Iqbal is writing, because it's super interesting. She comes from the VC world, and she came to see open source as a complete newcomer, you know, fresh eyes, and said, what, there's all this infrastructure, and nobody's making sure that it stays put. What happens if all these people go away? So something that's interesting in the traditions of copyright is that, at least in Europe, there's two great traditions. One of them is the English and also American, Australian tradition. The other one is the continental tradition. And copyright is the English tradition. It sees it first as a right to produce reproduction or copies. And the European one, it's more the French, or the author has an innate right to the creation, right? It's your thing that you create is yours, not like your, I don't know, your siblings are yours. They're not really yours, right? It's just a relationship, but they're actually yours. You own them, and you have a moral right over them. And something that I've realized is that people have an understanding of copyright that's kind of, they create themselves in their own societies. And the best example is every time you see people who copy other people's things against the law, then they turn around and say, what are you doing? You signed my rip of this DVD. I read this DVD. You are, they don't call each other thief or pirates, but they say, this is immoral, right? You're plagiarizing my no, I didn't plagiarize. So they disdain the economic part of copyright, but they have this kind of enhanced moral rights that are not codified in any law. And this is because there is something called laws and norms. And in between, by the way, we have rules. So we all know laws, and example of norms are queuing. If you have to explain them, then something has gone wrong. They're different by cultures, or they can even differ by neighborhoods. In my street, people park on the curb, and the norm is that if you park on the street legally, you'll be blocking traffic, but if you park too far into the curb, then you don't let prams and wheelchairs go by, and also you're being kind of a bad person, but it's nowhere written. And someone from the school my kids go to told me, oh, you're from that street where everybody parks on the curb, right? So that norm is known outside our little street. By the way, in between there's rules, things that are written down, like a code of conduct, that are not necessarily laws. Like we say, please don't swear. It's not illegal, and it's not a norm. That's why we have to write it down. So this woman, Nina Paley, is quite interesting. She's written something she calls the creator's mark, which is a way to enforce norms. Oh, wow, 22nd. It's enforce norms being nice. So she puts a mark saying, by the way, the person who's using this paid their creator. So my suggestion is that we try to enforce norms, not only rules and economic and business models. Yay! Thank you.
This is, whoa. Okay. I hope our cable is fine. Otherwise, Ryan will send you the bill after the conference. Yeah, if that interested you, you should come to LinuxConf AU in Hobart in January, something. Sam Bishop, you're up on deck. Ducky is going to tell us about a conference that I didn't just tell you about.
Hi everyone, I'm Ducky. I'm here to tell you very quickly about CompCon. CompCon is a computing students conference. It's a national one for Australia. This will be the third time it's ever run. It's being held in Queensland in October on those dates. Hopefully you can read the slide. It's 1st to the 3rd of October. And I'm here to implore all of you to either submit a presentation, attend, or you can even sponsor if you want. So I actually think that, I know there is not a single person in this room who couldn't contribute some sort of experience in a talk form to CompCon. And I would love to hear from any and all of you because you're all really amazing. So it would be really cool if you're interested in speaking or even attending, and you can come talk to me or go to this website. I have one last thing as well. This is kind of like a side thing. If anyone knows of any initiatives for Indigenous people in tech, I would love to hear about them. I haven't been able to find any, so please tell me some. Cool.
Oh, speak to Clinton, apparently.
Hooray,
cool.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, you should really get along to CompCon. They're doing a really valuable service in terms of making the whole tech community accessible to people at university. And I strongly encourage you to, if you're in Brisbane, submit a talk. If you can make it to Brisbane then, also submit a talk, get along, help support that. Matt Senja, if you can come and set up here. In the meantime, after I reset the timer, Sam, start.
Hi. Since these are supposed to be productivity tools, I'm not going to waste time. My details are on the slides. So, Task Warrior, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is a command line task management tool. It will save things into files. It can have a central database. You could even use it as a replacement for Git-based project management. You can just literally leave it in your repo. It's awesome. It's worth checking out. Details on the slide. There's another way it looks. Now there's Mailplane. Mailplane is a great way to avoid having the distraction of a web browser while you're trying to check work email. If you're using Gmail, Google Docs for work, or Enterprise, or whatever they're going to call it next month, Mailplane will keep that away from your browser and away from your distractions. Now, Dash. I'm sure that most of the audience is probably toting a Mac at the moment, since it seems to be the laptop du jour. And Dash is instantaneous documentation for you on that Mac. It is really awesome. It is worth the money. And for those of you who aren't using a Mac, there is Zeal, which is the same sort of program. It even actually uses the same kind of documentation. And they are quite equivalent. There's a few little differences, but if you aren't using a Mac, check out Zeal. Now, because I felt rather inspired by Russell's talk this morning, I decided to include some fun things at the end of this. I did some work on getting all the tools together as to anyone working on the road. So, working copy. This is Git. This is Git repos. You can clone them. You could actually get them off GitHub. Real, full history and all. And then you can do diffing and merging and all of those other fun things that Git is meant to do, including committing it back up there after you've made changes. And you might make those changes to something like Textastic. Now, this can actually go and open those repos natively and edit them on an iPhone or an iPad, and then you can commit back up your changes. And it even has syntax highlighting. You're not living in the dark ages. Now there's Pythonista. And Pythonista, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is freaking amazing. It is a complete Python environment, including additional modules to support iOS, including things like the speech API, the accelerometers, the graphics stack. You can make GUIs with it. The screenshot there shows a little game. It has syntax highlighting. It has neat little extras like selecting colors with a color selector box. It's got graphing. It's almost like having a complete IPython notebook, except it isn't really. And it even has colors because, again, we're not living in the dark ages. Now, depending on how well this part works, we may be able to actually just live demo. This is actually Python running on my iPad, no fancy trickery, copy-pasted. And it is going to pull down NASA's image of the day. We have the text, and in a moment we should have the image.
That conference Wi-Fi.
Oh no, I'm on 4G, so there we go. That is NASA's picture of the day. And we'll go a little further. We will pull up a stopwatch. If it starts, there we go. So it's a stopwatch app just programmed on there. How much time do I have?
1 minute 30.
I'm just going to keep going with demos because this is fun. This is stuff that you can just do on an iPad. I'll just play in their example here. Let's go with some games. What do we got? We've got Brick Breaker. Let's see. Let's play. This is all Python on an iPad that anybody could start doing. There is no need to get Xcode. There is no need to muck around. You can just take this and play with it. And I think that a lot more people need to realize it's out there because otherwise, well, we're just going to be fighting an uphill battle. It's not the sort of thing that we want to waste an opportunity to use. You show someone this, and you can start teaching them Python anywhere you are, or anywhere they might be, because this also has all of its own docs carried offline.
Cool, thank you. Okay. If you are planning on leading a sprint, or if you have a sprint project, could you start lining up behind this podium during this talk?
Hi.
Which is going to be given by Matthew after the clock starts.
Cool. So I'm going to throw a whole lot of information at you. You're not going to remember it all, but I'm hoping you'll remember enough of it that you can go to my Twitter handle and look for the Lightning Talk hashtag. Once I'm done here, I'll send the tweet, which has got a link to these slides with all of the info about all of the things that I'm about to tell you. So let's get started. I'm just this guy. You don't need to know all the details about my life. I run meetups in Melbourne every week for Open Knowledge Australia. We have an Open Knowledge Melbourne meetup group where we talk about, it's in the Melbourne CBD, we talk about open data, open government, open science, open hardware, open research, open software, open maps, open communities, anything open, we talk about it, or we will have people come and talk about it, or you're welcome to come and contribute. It's great. We have book clubs where people come and talk about books that deal with maps or privacy or whatever else. We have Meet the Data Owners things where people like Vic Roads or BOM or a couple of other organisations whose names escape me right now come and talk about this is the open data that we've got. We have Shut Up and Hack Nights where people can bring their own projects and work on them and get other people to contribute, or you can bring your own and work on your own thing. We have workshops on software tools. We had one on Chart.js. Here is how to make some really basic charts, and other talks. Come to our meetups. They're really awesome, and we usually have a few snacks, and it's really easy to get to. That's our meetup page. Check it out. Health Hack is a hackathon that Open Knowledge run. It's happening in October. Health Hack is for medical researchers and medical researchers with problems that they think tech can solve, but who don't really know much about tech. And they say, hey, look, we think you could solve this problem for us. They come and they lead, well, they become part of a team of people who are interested in their project, and within the weekend, they often come up with a solution that saves them quite a bit of time throughout their jobs. It's running in Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, and Perth this year. And we will have childcare, definitely at Melbourne, probably at the other sites as well. And that's their website. Speaking of childcare, childcare at events isn't that hard. I wanted to talk about that because a lot of people say, oh, childcare, it's too hard. Childcare isn't that hard. This is a link to the following blog that I'm going to show you here. We ran childcare at GovHack last year and this year. We got a couple of people to come for the weekend, so about business hours, like 9 till 4, I think, throughout the weekend, to look after any kids that happened to be there. And it wasn't particularly expensive, it wasn't particularly hard. Go and check out the blog post on how we did it. BICEConf is an emerging technologies festival, which is happening in November. It's just west of Melbourne. It's totally amazing. I'm going to be there. It's done at a caravan park, thank you. And it's totally awesome. They talk about robots, implantables, wearables, the whole shebang. It's really fantastic. That's their website. And also, finally, LinuxConf next year, open source conference. Everybody should totally come to it. It's in Hobart. It's in January. Rock up. Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of all of our lightning talks. If we could give another big round of applause to everybody who presented them. Okay, so we have a bunch of sprint leaders. I'm going to run a timer, move you on after 40 seconds. Okay, and the time has now started.
Good afternoon, my name is William Brown. I'm from Red Hat. I work on authentication identity management solutions. I'll be running a sprint tomorrow related to authentication identity management, mainly working on improving how we integrate with that, how you can build your apps to use centralized auth, how you can do things that are smarter with permissions, improving user password and security management, getting two-factor auth involved into your applications. If you want some help getting your applications to work with LDAP or other enterprise authentication, come see me. If you want to hack on some cool admin tools, come see me as well. Thank you.
Great. Up next.
Good afternoon. I'm Josh. I work on OpenStack. There's about half a dozen of us here who work on various bits or more. So if you want to come along and work with us, that would be excellent. Happy to have people who are building applications against OpenStack, who want to learn how to build for that particular cloud, or want to develop on OpenStack itself, contribute to the project, learn how to make contributions and work with our tool chains. So come along and have a chat.
Great. Up next.
Hello, I'm Amber. I'm Twisted's Al-themed release management simulator, and I'll be hacking on Twisted over the sprints, mainly on async I/O integration, as well as improving integration with, for example, Django channels and the Beware suite. If you would like to contribute to Twisted but never have, we have now got Git and GitHub PRs and Travis and all of that, and trying to make that as easy as possible. So if you've ever wanted to contribute and you know, was blocked by the process, come and see me, and we can work through it. And hopefully it's easier now.
Great. Up next.
Hi, I'm Marcus. I'm a Django core dev. There are a couple of others around. Josh was sitting over there. Russ is there, Curtis there. We are sprinting on Django tomorrow. If you want to contribute to Django, join us. Or if you want to contribute to a related project, you're also happy to join the, well, I would have said room, but, well, it's only one room. Join our table. We're probably going to sprint on a bunch of things. 1.10 was released recently. A couple of bugs to fix. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim, and my lightning talk had like 3 more slides, which basically said, come and hack on the things I was just talking about. If you find it interesting, I'll have the hardware there. You can actually come and look at it and understand it. Joel's apparently going to be distracted porting MicroPython like to our board, so that should be interesting. And yeah, it's really quite accessible, lots of Python involved, and we would absolutely love your help because more recordings at conferences and stuff and your user group would be awesome.
Hey, thanks for that, Tim. Hey, Ben.
Hey, I'm Ben Sternfels. I'll be sprinting on GNU Media Goblin in the next couple of days, and it's a media publishing system for artists. There's lots of great opportunities if you've never contributed to a free software project before, so I'd be really happy to help you make your first contribution. Lots of low-hanging fruit to get started in within a day or 2 days. So please come and join me. Thanks.
Great. Russell? Hey.
Hi, I'm just this guy, you know. So yeah, I'm going to be a keynote this morning all about Beware, getting Python running on iOS, getting it running on Android, getting it running on set-top boxes, getting it running on watches. If that sounds like, also in single-page web apps. If this sounds like something that you might be interested in, we're going to be sprinting about all those projects, any of those projects. We also have an open offer to mentor anybody who wants to get involved. We had someone at PyCon US who learnt to use GitHub 2 hours earlier and has a commit in our project. We can get you that commit if you come in and you've got the right attitude. Plus, also shiny contributor coins for anybody who gets a commit in or any other contribution over the course of the sprint. So,
great, thank you very much, Russell. 40 seconds exactly. Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Moon. I'm actually really new to data carpentry, but I'm just starting out as a contributor. So data carpentry, software carpentry, and library carpentry are related projects that have been developed to create training modules for scientists, researchers, and librarians. And generally they run as 2-day workshops consisting of 4 modules. So there's lots of these modules already online, and also the websites for the 3 projects. So there's lots of things that could be improved or added to in those. And I'll be actually looking at looking at the different modules that are available and trying to piece them, four of them together to make sense for a new audience. But there's lots of scope for other people to do anything else on the projects. And I'd second Russell's offer that I'm also happy to bring anybody up to speed on how to use GitHub and how to contribute to those projects. So come and join me tomorrow.
Thanks very much. And last but not least,
Geordie Miller here, author of everyone's favourite GPS location and map sharing app. One of the things I'd very much like to do is get the completely open source Android app onto F-Droid, so it's not just available through the Play Store. In addition, there's a whole lot of other stuff people could potentially contribute some code for, or if you just wanted to see how a Python web app that does real-time updating to the client over WebSockets works, come and see me.
Great. So yeah, there are sprints. They are tomorrow. They are Tuesday. If any of those projects interested you, you should come along and see what you can do to help out. If you have a project of your own that you didn't come up here and mention, I'm sure you're also welcome. Richard, are you basically ready to go?
Good to go, except the screensaver.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll just let you type in your password.
Everyone see that?
Yep, everyone, please welcome Richard Jones for the conference closing.
Thanks. Wow, thanks everyone. I'm just a little bit tired, so we'll see how we go. We broke a bunch of records this year with PyCon AU. We actually had, I gave some numbers at the opening on Saturday, and I kind of gave a slightly longer impression. We ended up with actually over 600 registrations, which is quite phenomenal to me. That's like 150 more than last year or something. It's crazy. That was 530 of us on Saturday, on Friday, and then just under that on the weekend. So there was a bit of overlap, but 600. I mean, I'm quite stoked, actually. And 450 at the dinner last night, which was incredible to see. So I'm... oh yeah, and then there's the 78 speakers with 94 presentations, and that's not even counting all the amazing lightning talks we've been seeing. I actually got to see lightning talks, which is like actually some of the first presentations I've seen all weekend. And the financial aid was higher than we've done before as well, which was fantastic, upwards of 20,000. So that's fantastic. So yeah, just thanks everyone for turning up. It's just been amazing. And the AV team have already got videos going up. So our very first videos are already up on the YouTube, which is, yeah, astounding. So the sprints have already been mentioned, so I don't really need to mention much more except this room, 9 a.m. to 6, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is basically the times that the room will be open. And that's tomorrow and Tuesday, so I think we know enough about that. I do need to thank all our sponsors again, because again, without them, it wouldn't happen. So let's thank IRS, DevDemand, our gold sponsors, Google, Optiva, HP Enterprise, and Arnet, thanks for the internet. And all these lovely PyCon sponsors, Django Software Foundation, Python Software Foundation, Sportsbet, Facebook, Real Estate, New Atlas, Capital Numbers for the morning and afternoon tea breaks, Saltworth, who also sponsored the PyLadies Breakfast, Elastic, Planet Innovation, Red Hat, Cisco, Enabler, Biari, Console, University of Melbourne, Monash University, there's so many. Rural Doctors Network, Common Code, who sponsored the coffee, Eldarian, Pivot9, and JetBrains, who gave us those gifts for this morning, or the prizes for this morning. So thanks to all of them. I always go faster when I'm tired. Could I please have Damien and Russ up on the stage, please? And Tennessee, would you... So we actually have gifts for them, just to say thank you. Damien. Thank you so much for your wonderful keynote.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Wow. Okay, volunteers, if you have a yellow lanyard, please come up to the stage. All of you, AV and everyone, come on, up you come. Of course, without all of these folks, it wouldn't have happened either. They are the grease or the oil or the whatever the hell that makes it all work. As you leave the stage, please grab yourselves a mug from the box. It would take too long to hand them all out. Yeah, so just thank you so much for everything you've done, and hope to see you next year.
It's so cool.
Okay. Wow. So many volunteers. Yeah. Well, the AV team's quite big these days. Okay, now for the next lot. Organisers, if you are on the team with the green lanyards, please come up to the stage. Working for up to 9 months now, even a couple of months longer, some of us looking at venues. Just done an amazing job to get this thing going, and just the hours that have gone into it. The mini-conf organisers, everyone, it's just been amazing, and without them, it couldn't have been done. So yeah, just fantastic effort from everyone. Thank you so much.
Team, could you stick around for a moment? Just.
Oh, you have a microphone. Okay.
I don't know what's next.
Cool.
Just before you move on.
Oh.
Yeah. Do we have a microphone? Is that on?
This one is on.
Okay.
It's been, the idea of having PyCon Australia in Melbourne has been around for a lot of years, and there was a lot of people who said, yes, I'll be part of it, but I don't want to be the person in charge. And eventually Richard did put his hand up, and we are so grateful to stand behind him and recognise the work that he's done to actually make this happen. So we just wanted to say thank you, Richard.
I also have a message. So this conference is underwritten by an organisation called Linux Australia. Linux Australia is the peak group for open source users and developers in Australia. One of the things that Linux Australia does is run a series of open source events, including LinuxConf AU as well as PyCon Australia. And on behalf of Linux Australia, myself, Tim Ansell, Clinton Roy, operate a subcommittee for overseeing how PyCon Australia works. And basically, as a token of our appreciation for the conference, we got you this lovely bottle of Tasmanian single grain rye whiskey, signed by the distiller.
Oh, wow.
So thank you very much, Richard. You've done an absolutely amazing job on behalf of all of us. We're previous organisers of this conference and know what an absolutely demanding job it is. So everybody, yeah, please thank Richard. He's done such an amazing job.
It turns out the only way to stop being the program chair in perpetuity is to become the conference chair. So. All right. I don't even know what's up next. I've done that one. We've already talked enough about LCA, I think. I would like to give a plug because Tom was so fantastic last night at the dinner. Just a plug, Kiwi PyCon, I've been to a couple of those. They really are fun. It's a lovely community over there. If you can make it, I highly recommend it. Wow, and look, this is a conference that we started for the community, to build the community, and I think we've done a reasonably good job of that. Thank you everyone so much for coming, and I hope to see you next year in Melbourne, and stick around for the sprints if you can, because they're a blast as well. Thank you so much for coming.